This is Bloomberg Businessweek. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, everybody, when we talk about carbon emissions on our program and the path to net zero, we often talk about the carbon emissions associated with power generation, transportation, food production, a lot of things. There is, though, a big one lurking that doesn't get as much attention, although Business Week has been kind of certainly trying to get to it, and that is cement production, what goes into building materials. And manufacturing cement is responsible for 7% of global carbon dioxide emissions, more than what comes from all the trucks in the world. This according to the International Energy Agency. That's an important stat.
It is. And you're not going to believe where I'm going to go right now, okay?
I'm going to go there with you.
Three-time NBA champion Rick Fox is trying to do something about this. You know him from his time on the Boston Celtics and the Lakers, or maybe even as an actor or producer. He's got hundreds of movie and TV episode credits, but he's also the founder and CEO of Partana. It's a company that creates an alternative to Portland cement made of recycled ingredients. The company says it's, quote, developed the world's first building material that avoids emissions and removes carbon from the atmosphere. Rick Fox joins us here in the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Wow. I mean, okay, we talk about the NBA career, talk about your Hollywood career. How do you get to this part of your career?
What's Rick Fox doing in concrete?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The short version is a call to service. It started as a call to service to my home country in the Bahamas on the heels of a hurricane disaster, Dorian, in 2019. We were displaced. Some 30,000 people were displaced. Homes were destroyed. People were swept out to sea. And outside of donating money from my Bahamas Relief Foundation, I decided to get on the ground and start to ask the question of how do we build more hurricane resilient homes, more sustainable homes, to dig ourselves out of the $11 billion of debt that we were in as a country because of the repeated storms. Now, I grew up as a kid in the Bahamas where hurricanes were our version of a amusement park at the time in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
It wasn't as severe as you see today, and those storms are more and more frequent. So for me, it was a call to service to try and find a solution beyond just donating money. And that led me to a search around 2020 when the world shut down. And we can rest assured, Rick Fox is not the material science behind the technology here. We'll state that up front here. I have a number of scientists and partners who have been innovating concrete for decades. They're the best in the industry. One of them have been Cement Man of the Year. Others are on the board.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Cement
there's
Man
such
of
a
the
thing,
Year.
right?
Yeah, I was not aware there was a Cement Man of the Year. Well, congratulations to him.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have that. It reminds me of my Shaq and Kobe days when you have some of the best in the business to work with. So they've been innovating concrete, and over the course of some 6 years of rigorous innovation, they got to this material, not only catching lightning in a bottle for multitude of times in their careers, but in the case of Partana, I met them at a point when they were patenting this formula and trying to get it from lab into a commercial state. And so I formed a company along with my founder called Partana Global to bring that out of the lab and into the world.
Rick, tell us exactly what they're doing and what makes it sustainable and less impactful on the environment.
Yes, so the first thing that you may learn about cement as a binder in the production of concrete is that it takes an immense amount of energy to get to a clinker state, which allows you then to produce concrete. We are a plug-and-play solution without the heating and the emissions that come with the creation of clinker. We have zero Portland cement in our production of concrete. We take upscale big industry waste, one product of it being from the slag industry, the steel manufacturing industry, which is slag, and another one being brine, which is the desalination industry,
right,
where those waste materials are pumped into the ocean or pumped into landfills. We take them and through our process.
And it can be devastating.
It can be extremely devastating.
Yeah.
When if you think about cement and its impact on the environment,
right,
heats up our planet, then it heats up our oceans and destroys our coral. It's a repeated cycle of negativity, right? We get to a nature positive concrete by swapping out the binder that is Portland cement and replacing it with Partana. Those waste materials, through our process and our patented formula, get us to an interaction with CO2, which not only avoids the CO2 negative emissions when we produce it, but also absorbs and removes CO2 from the atmosphere
How
in
does
that
that
carbonation
happen?
process. So
Don't trees do that?
yeah, trees do it.
But how does a building do it?
Yeah.
Like it
Right.
makes sense that
So
a tree and its leaves do it.
Well, it's chemistry, right? So the magic of chemistry will generate the process through the interaction and activation of the brine in our mix. But even cement, the negativity of cement, it is also absorbing CO2. So let's not. The problem with cement is that it does so much harm on the front end that it can't celebrate the back end.
I mean, the actual manufacturing of it.
Yes, you can't celebrate the back end of it. And so in the case of our company, we had a 2-year close working relationship with one of the top manufacturers of cement products, Topworks out of Germany. They just validated us at the World of Concrete in Vegas as the only replacement for Portland cement in the concrete industry right now to date. Now, there are a lot of people out there reducing Portland cement in the production of concrete, but no one can 100% replace it, avoid and remove CO2 at the same time.
Who's backing the company? Venture capital wise.
I give a huge gratitude and shout out to Cherubic Ventures, our angel investors that have been there from day one. They've brought a number of their network folks along with us, major individuals that have supported us. And now as we move towards this year, scaling being the next challenge, we're hoping to have the likes of some of the biggest movers in the world that can actually scale this.
Where are you right now in this? Like, how much have you raised?
Right now we've raised $30 million. So we're moving into this year now to scale 4 factories in different regions globally.
If it's so, it sounds like win-win.
Yes.
It would seem to me that anybody who was in the building environment would say, I'm in it. Let us help you scale it up.
Yes.
Is it cost a lot to do this?
So prices, in terms of manufacturing and CapEx, building a facility is something that's not exciting to investors when you're burying CapEx dollars.
Yeah.
But once you establish that, then you have the ability to generate return on that investment in our factories in the first year. So we turn around rather quickly here.
So the actual product is competitive with existing building material or existing concrete.
Right. So cement is
traditional.
a commodity. And as you can imagine, different parts of the world, depending on where you get your materials from, cement can be priced slightly all over the place, right? No different with our formula. The exciting part of our business model is we become a plug and play. When you go to a factory that is producing cement products today to get to concrete products, finished products, we can swap that in and out in a plug and play fashion in less than a week. So the excitement level there is no new equipment, no new materials. You're really taking out the binder of Portland cement and you're adding our binder of Partana. So that's so when you talk about the cost.
Right.
Cost is relative, right? I'll just say this one point I like to remind people. You will pay, depending on your problem, that'll determine what you're willing to pay, correct?
Agreed.
And so in the case of our products and material, we're making affordable homes in the Bahamas, some 1,000 homes, all the way up to luxury-based developments. So whether we're making a CMU block or pouring a bridge or a planter or whatever retail product you can make, you're going to find a wide range of product and pricing. But for us, we hope with scale to bring our products down below what cement products cost, which we know we can get to. And then on top of that, we generate an asset class at a bottom line in carbon credits that can be used for good and actually can incentivize our partners.
This is one of those interviews. You're going to have to come back because we're running out of time and we know we want to do more. Good luck. Let us know how things are going.
Thank you.
Rick Fox, of course. We appreciate your time today. Partana. Well, from rainwater in the Himalayas to whales off the Faroe
Islands.
I can't believe
you
got
to go there.
I know.
I haven't been there, but I want to go.
Well, whales off the Faroe Islands to groundwater in Minnesota. PFAS, so-called forever chemicals, have been detected in every corner of the planet and in the blood of almost every human tested. If you've been listening to us over the last couple of weeks, you know we were a little obsessed with this and trying to get to the bottom of it.
Well, it makes sense, though, because these so-called forever chemicals have been linked to an increasingly long list of health problems, including obesity, fertility issues, and cancer. And Carol, there's a very high chance that we'll come into contact with them today. And they're almost certainly already in our bodies.
We talk about it a lot at home, I'm going to say. Yeah. We talked about it over the weekend. We wanted to understand a little bit more about them and on an industrial level, what's being done. Joining us is Callie Edgren. She is Senior Director of Sustainability over at Ascent. Ascent works with manufacturing companies to analyze their global supply chains and look for sustainability risks. And she focuses specifically on risks from PFAS. She joins us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She's on Zoom.
Hi.
Callie, great to have you here with us. I was just thinking, I paused for a moment because I was just thinking about the conversation we were just having with Rick Fox about just looking for ways to do things that are sustainable and don't harm the environment. Like, how can we all get on board, and how do we unwind ourselves from how much as a society we rely on plastics, all different types of plastics for just about everything. I look around me and I'm surrounded by plastic. I look around at home, I'm surrounded by plastic.
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle because, of course, a lot of those things make life more convenient, right? And PFAS are no different. So I think that's the challenge, is we have to maybe adjust the way that we're living and our expectations for those materials as well, before we can really get them out of our lives.
What do you mean by adjusting expectations? Sort of, is that just resigning to the notion that these are in our bodies and our lives?
Don't say that.
What does it mean, though?
Please.
Yeah, so I think when I say that, think of something like a nonstick pan that's coated with Teflon, and that's a very
we got rid of those in our
product.
house.
Right, that's great. I love that you're all obsessed with PFAS, because so am I. So a lot of people, though, aren't maybe ready to make a shift to cast iron because it's a little less convenient and a little more work. And I think that's the challenge, and that's a struggle that a lot of manufacturers have, is this paradox between customers who want them to get rid of PFAS, and yet those customers maybe are ready to give up the properties that they're used to from PFAS. And I think that's the real challenge, right, is changing that understanding and expectations among customers as well.
Should we, as consumers, expect that it's got to be a slow transition just because they're so entrenched in the system? And can we really afford to slow down, or do we need to kind of do something radical? And what might that be, or how can we get there?
Well, I do think one radical disruption coming from manufacturers is 3M discontinuing the manufacture of PFAS. And this is kind of forcing everybody's hand, right? Because if you can't get the parts anymore, it doesn't matter if you've designed them out or not, you can't make those products. So I do think we see some radical forces already affecting this change. And we'll have to see if some other chemical manufacturers follow 3M's lead and stop making those PFAS chemicals altogether. If you can't get the parts, it doesn't matter, if you're in the scope of a regulation or not.
Right. They're going to exit all PFAS manufacturing by the end of 2025. How big is 3M compared to some of the other players that are out there?
If you look at the NGO ChemSec, it's a Swedish NGO, they've looked at the top 12 PFAS manufacturers in the world, and 3M is on that list. They're not the largest one, but they have a very broad range of PFAS chemicals. Of course, they've been making them for getting close to 100 years. So I think it is going to have a significant impact because they have a lot of niche chemicals that they're manufacturing as well. And again, their downstream customers are not going to be able to get those parts anymore.
Okay, so the cat's out of the bag. We know that when it comes to PFAS. I always like to ask people like you who live in these worlds day in and day out, Callie, how you have adjusted your lifestyle to live in a world like this. I mean, are you doing certain things at home that you think all of us should do because you're aware of the presence of these chemicals, apart from getting rid of nonstick?
Have you banned every plastic container in your home?
Well, I do have my glass water bottle here that I drink out of. I get asked that question actually a lot. So of course there's the pans. I've changed my makeup. I've changed my dental floss. Definitely trying to avoid plastic for a number of reasons, not just PFAS. There's a lot of other chemicals in plastic, right? But then there's some other things that there's just not alternatives yet. So I am waiting for industry to somewhat catch up. I no longer spray my, winter boots with PFAS. So I just where you become aware of it, that's a choice that you can make and try to find an alternative.
Well, and I wonder if that's the first thing to do in terms of labeling, right? That if there is something on a product, we've done that with trans fats and different things, right? We're all very aware. Things like corn syrup, and just there are things that raise the awareness that if a consumer starts saying no, that's got to impact a company's decisions and their supply chain partners. Sure. Is that fair, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's already a handful of state laws that are migrating towards this, especially for cookware. They're starting to require disclosure. In California, they have cleaning products disclosure rules. Of course, California also has Proposition 65, which has a few PFAS in it, and that has to be warned to consumers. So I do think that we're going to see more laws coming like that maybe we can't design it out yet, but we at least want to make sure that customers are aware before they buy the product what they're going to be exposed to. And I think we're going to see some growing state regulations along that line.
Much has been written over the past few years, and indeed even a decade, about how companies knew about these chemicals, what they did in terms of disposing these chemicals. You have an inside view on what these companies are doing, Callie. Are they doing the right thing right now?
Well, I don't want to speak to the past, but I do think that in the current regulatory framework, they absolutely are, at least certainly the companies that I engage with. I think it's important to point out that there are very few PFAS chemicals that have actually had laws written against them. And so what's happened in the past is the way companies were discharging maybe water from their processes that had some PFAS in it, they weren't doing anything that wasn't legal. And so I think the thing to note here is that our understanding of the hazards has changed, and we are looking backwards. We see things like Superfund is going to be adding some PFAS chemicals to it. So I do think there will be some reckoning coming, but it is important to note that most of those companies weren't actually, violating any regulations. We just are all becoming much more aware now of the hazards of PFAS.
Right. The EPA is, right, from my understanding, expected to release a list of known PFAS that companies must report. And so we know this is kind of coming down. A lot of industrial facilities, military locations, airports, wastewater plants. What's the number one reason for anyone who is listening and watching right now why we should be really worried if we let this continue at the current rate in terms of the amount of PFAS that are out there?
I don't like to cause panic.
No, I want to be smart and because you are in this and what people need to know.
Mm-hmm. I think first off, drinking water, right, is a large concern. And so a lot of states are enacting laws to start remediation of that drinking water. There are ways that you can filter PFAS out, it's expensive, but there are ways to do it. And I see a lot of state laws that are really focused on drinking water, soil, and air remediation. And that's certainly going to help, right? Let's get it out of the water that we live with every single day. I think that, more awareness of things, even choices, like I don't make microwave popcorn because there's PFAS in those bags. So that education for people of knowing here's choices you can make.
Didn't know that. Hey, 10 seconds. Where do we look to find this information? 10 seconds.
I think there's a lot of great resources out there. I mentioned the NGO Chemsec out of Sweden. They have a lot of great information on where PFAS can be found, and that's a great starting point.
Well, we so appreciate it. I feel smarter already and a little freaked out already too, but you shared it in a calm way. It's just things we need to know.
Just breathe in, breathe out, Carol.
A little meditation required right now. Callie Edgren, Senior Director of Sustainability over at Ascent on Zoom from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.